Strength is not always loud and progress is not always visible. Some of the most meaningful changes in a believer's life happen quietly, away from attention, approval, and recognition. There are moments when you continue to show up with a heavy heart, when you choose patience while feeling exhausted, and when you hold on to faith even though no one sees the effort it takes. These unseen moments are not empty. They are shaping you in ways that public success never could. In the silence, Allah is building something real within you. While the world measures worth by applause and results, Allah looks at endurance, intention, and sincerity. Every quiet act of obedience, every restrained reaction, and every tear held back for His sake carries weight with Him. This is the kind of growth that strengthens the soul, steadies the heart, and prepares a believer for what lies ahead. Even when people do not notice your struggle or your effort, Allah is fully aware, and His recognition is greater than any praise the world could offer. Allah, in His infinite wisdom and mercy, does not make every stage of a believer's growth visible to others. There is a deep reason why some journeys unfold quietly without attention or recognition. If every step of progress were exposed, the heart could easily become attached to praise, opinions, and expectations. Allah knows the human heart better than we know ourselves, and He protects it before it is harmed. When Allah hides the process, He is safeguarding sincerity. In private moments, the believer learns a powerful lesson. Who am I doing this for? When no one is watching, no one is applauding, and no one is encouraging, intentions become honest. Actions are no longer fueled by approval or validation. They are driven by faith, by obedience, and by the desire to please Allah alone. This is where worship becomes pure. Many people feel confused during this phase. They ask why their efforts seem unnoticed, why their struggles are invisible, and why their growth is not acknowledged. But this hidden stage is not neglect, and it is certainly not rejection. It is a form of divine care. Allah is teaching the heart to stand without leaning on people. He is removing distractions so that reliance can shift fully toward Him. In privacy, the believer is refined. Weaknesses are exposed gently without public embarrassment. Mistakes become lessons rather than labels. Growth becomes internal before it ever becomes visible. Just as a seed must remain buried in darkness before it can rise strong and stable, the believer must often grow away from attention to develop depth and firmness. Allah also hides the process to protect the believer from arrogance. When success comes too early or too publicly, it can damage humility. The heart may begin to associate worth with recognition. But when growth happens quietly, gratitude increases and pride decreases. The believer learns that every step forward is by Allah's permission, not personal strength. This phase is preparation for responsibility. Allah does not elevate someone before strengthening their character. If Allah plans to use you, trust that He will first build you. He will teach patience before relief, discipline before ease, and sincerity before recognition. When the time comes for growth to be seen, the heart will already be grounded, stable, and humble. So if you feel hidden today, understand that Allah is not ignoring you. He is working on you with care. He is shaping your heart, correcting your intentions, and preparing you for what lies ahead. What grows quietly often lasts the longest, and what Allah builds away from eyes is built to withstand trials. This hidden phase is not delay, it is divine preparation. Real character is not revealed in moments of comfort, ease, or public admiration. It is shaped in the quiet spaces of life when no one is watching, when no one would know what choice you made, and when there is nothing to gain except Allah's pleasure. Anyone can appear strong when circumstances are favorable, but true strength is formed when the heart is tested in silence. There are moments when a person stands alone with their thoughts, emotions, and temptations. In those moments, it would be easy to give up, to react with anger, to speak words that hurt, or to lose hope entirely. No one would see it. No one would question it. And yet, it is precisely in these unseen moments that Allah shapes the believer's character most deeply. Choosing patience when frustration feels overwhelming, choosing restraint when anger feels justified, and choosing hope when disappointment feels heavy. These choices leave a permanent mark on the heart. Public praise may motivate actions, but it does not build inner strength. Applause can encourage behavior, but it cannot produce sincerity. When a believer restrains themselves privately, they are not acting for approval or recognition. They are acting out of awareness that Allah sees them. This awareness strengthens faith and develops a sense of accountability that remains even when no one else is present. Allah uses private struggles to teach discipline. Discipline is not about control in front of others. It is about consistency when no one is reminding you. It is waking up for prayer when no one would notice if you stayed asleep. It is lowering your gaze when there is no fear of being caught. It is choosing silence over argument when no one would blame you for speaking. These quiet decisions train the soul and make it resilient. Unseen struggles also teach sincerity. When actions are hidden, the heart is forced to confront its intentions. Are you doing good because people expect it, or because you believe in it? Are you holding back from sin because of reputation, or because you fear Allah? Private struggle removes the masks we wear and leaves the heart exposed before its creator. This exposure, though uncomfortable, is necessary for purification. Restraint practiced in private creates emotional strength. A person who learns to control their reactions away from attention develops stability that cannot be shaken easily. They are not driven by impulse or ego. Instead, they respond with wisdom and calm. This firmness cannot be achieved through public effort alone. It is the result of repeated private victories over the self. Many people underestimate the value of what they endure silently. They think that because no one sees their effort, it carries little weight. But with Allah, the unseen carries immense value. Every moment of self-control, every quiet endurance, and every internal struggle faced with faith contributes to the formation of a strong and trustworthy heart. Private struggles prepare the believer for public responsibility. When a person has learned to manage themselves in solitude, they are less likely to be corrupted by attention or power later. Allah strengthens people privately so that when they are tested publicly, they remain grounded. This is why unseen struggles are not meaningless, they are essential. So when you find yourself struggling quietly, remember that something important is being built within you. Allah is shaping your character, strengthening your discipline, and refining your sincerity. What is formed in private becomes the foundation for a life of integrity, stability, and faith. Patience is often misunderstood. Many people think patience only matters when it is seen, when others notice how calm you remain, how composed you appear, or how well you carry yourself during difficulty. When patience is visible, people may encourage you, praise you, or admire your strength. There is nothing wrong with that. But there is another form of patience that carries a far deeper reward. The patience that is practiced quietly, away from eyes, away from applause, and away from recognition. Quiet patience is different. It is not supported by words from others. It is not strengthened by appreciation or reassurance. It is carried alone between the heart and Allah. This is the patience of continuing to obey Allah when you feel exhausted. It is the patience of holding on to prayer when motivation is low, of maintaining good character when emotions are heavy, and of trusting Allah when clarity feels distant. This kind of patience is not dramatic, but it is powerful. There are times in life when the heart feels tired in ways that are difficult to explain. You may still be functioning, still fulfilling responsibilities, still showing up for others, but inside you feel drained. In these moments, patience becomes an act of worship. Choosing not to give up when you are mentally and emotionally worn is not weakness, it is devotion. Allah sees the effort it takes to remain steady when nothing feels easy. Private patience often appears during confusion. You may not understand why something is happening, why relief feels delayed, or why a particular struggle continues despite sincere effort. Yet you continue to make dua, you continue to pray, you continue to avoid what displeases Allah. This is not passive waiting, this is active trust. It is worship carried out through endurance. Allah values consistency far more than visibility. A small action done regularly, even in weakness, is more beloved to Allah than a grand action done briefly with enthusiasm. When patience is practiced privately, it is often consistent. There is no external pressure to perform. The believer continues simply because they believe Allah is worth obeying even when they do not feel strong. This form of patience trains the soul. It teaches the heart not to rely on emotional highs, to remain obedient. It teaches the believer to remain grounded even when feelings fluctuate. Life is not always lived in moments of inspiration. Many days are ordinary, heavy or unclear. Private patience allows faith to continue through all of them. Quiet patience also protects sincerity. When no one knows what you are enduring, there is no temptation to exaggerate, complain excessively, or seek sympathy. The struggle becomes personal, honest, and sincere. The believer learns to turn inward and upward rather than outward. They speak to Allah more than to people. This deepens the relationship with Him in ways that public patience cannot. Allah draws servants closer through patience practiced in silence. When you restrain your tongue from complaint, restrain your heart from despair, and restrain your actions from disobedience, Allah knows. Even when circumstances do not change immediately, something else is changing. The heart is being strengthened, trust is being deepened, reliance is being purified. Private patience often goes unnoticed by the world, but it never goes unnoticed by Allah. Every moment you resist giving up, every time you continue despite fatigue, and every choice you make to remain faithful is recorded. Allah does not overlook quiet endurance. In fact, it is often this endurance that brings the greatest reward. There is a special closeness that comes from obeying Allah when it feels difficult. Anyone can worship when life is smooth and the heart is light. But worship during hardship, confusion, or emotional strain carries a different weight. It shows sincerity, it shows commitment, it shows trust beyond comfort. Patience practiced quietly builds resilience. It prepares the believer for future tests by strengthening emotional stability and spiritual endurance. When you learn to endure without constant reassurance, you become less dependent on circumstances to maintain faith. This independence is not isolation, it is reliance on Allah alone. Many people underestimate themselves during these quiet phases. They think they are failing because they do not feel inspired or strong. But Allah does not measure faith by feelings, He measures it by persistence. Continuing to choose obedience, kindness, and trust even when the heart feels heavy is a sign of deep faith. Private patience also teaches humility. It reminds the believer that strength does not come from the self but from Allah. When patience is sustained without external support, the heart learns to ask Allah for strength repeatedly. This dependence is beloved to Him. Allah loves to see His servant return to Him again and again, especially when tired. There will be days when patience feels lonely, when you wish someone understood what you are carrying, when you wish relief would come sooner. In those moments, remember that Allah understands fully. He knows what you are enduring, why it is difficult, and how much effort it takes to remain steady. His knowledge is enough. Patience does not always change circumstances immediately, but it always changes the heart. It softens bitterness, strengthens trust, and increases clarity over time. The believer who practices patience quietly develops an inner calm that is not dependent on external stability. So if you are holding on today without recognition, without encouragement, and without visible results, do not underestimate the value of what you are doing. Your patience is worship. Your endurance is devotion. Your consistency is beloved to Allah. What is carried quietly for His sake is never lost, and the closeness it brings is greater than anything patience could earn from the world. One of the most difficult lessons Allah teaches the heart is learning to live without constant reassurance from people. From a young age, many of us become accustomed to approval. We are encouraged when praised, motivated when noticed, and reassured when others affirm our efforts. There is nothing inherently wrong with encouragement, but when the heart becomes dependent on it, it grows fragile. Allah, in His mercy, does not leave the believer trapped in that weakness. There comes a stage where encouragement reduces, appreciation fades, and reactions become silent. Suddenly, the same effort that once received recognition feels invisible. This shift is uncomfortable and often painful. The believer may begin to question their worth, their progress, or even their direction. But this phase is not meant to break the heart, it is meant to free it. Allah uses silence to redirect reliance. When validation disappears, the believer is forced to ask a deeper question. Why am I doing this? Is it for people's approval or is it for Allah's pleasure? This question refines intention in a way that praise never could. Without applause, actions become honest, worship becomes real, effort becomes sincere. This transition feels heavy. The heart may feel unmotivated or discouraged. It may feel as though effort is pointless when no one seems to notice. But slowly, something changes. The believer begins to draw strength directly from Allah. Instead of looking outward for reassurance, they turn inward and upward. Dua becomes more personal. Prayer becomes more meaningful. Trust becomes deeper. Letting go of validation teaches emotional independence. When motivation no longer depends on reactions, the heart becomes stable. Praise does not inflate it and criticism does not crush it. The believer learns to remain consistent regardless of how people respond. This steadiness is a sign of maturity in faith. Allah knows that constant validation can quietly damage sincerity. When people are always watching, the heart can become performative. Actions may slowly shift from being acts of worship to acts of appearance. By removing attention, Allah protects the believer from this trap. He teaches them to do good even when it feels unnoticed and to obey Him even when no one is impressed. This lesson also teaches humility. Without recognition, the believer realizes that their efforts were never about personal greatness. They were always about obedience. When validation fades, arrogance fades with it. Gratitude replaces entitlement. The believer understands that every ability, every opportunity, and every step forward is from Allah alone. Letting go of validation does not happen overnight. It is a gradual process and it can feel lonely at times. There may be moments when you wish someone would acknowledge how hard you are trying. Moments when you wish someone understood the effort it takes to remain patient, kind, or faithful. In those moments, remember that Allah understands completely. His knowledge is enough, even when it does not feel that way. This phase strengthens trust. When no one reassures you, you learn to reassure yourself with faith. You remind your heart that Allah sees what people overlook. You remember that Allah rewards sincerity, not visibility. This remembrance becomes a source of calm and resilience. As validation loses its grip, motivation becomes purer. You act not because you are seen, but because you believe. You continue not because you are praised, but because you trust Allah's promise. This is a powerful transformation. It shifts the heart from external dependence to internal conviction. A believer who lets go of validation becomes difficult to shake. They are not driven by trends, opinions, or expectations. They move with purpose, guided by principles rather than reactions. The strength allows them to remain steady even when misunderstood, overlooked, or ignored. Allah teaches this lesson because it prepares the believer for greater responsibility. A heart that depends on validation cannot carry leadership, influence, or trust without being affected by ego. But a heart grounded in sincerity can handle attention when it comes and remain humble when it goes. Letting go of validation also brings peace. The constant need to be noticed creates anxiety. The fear of being forgotten creates pressure. When that need is released, the heart rests. Effort becomes lighter. Faith becomes simpler. The believer learns to move through life without carrying the weight of others' opinions. This lesson does not mean isolating oneself from people or rejecting encouragement entirely. It means no longer needing it to function. It means appreciating praise without depending on it and accepting criticism without being destroyed by it. Balance replaces fragility. When your motivation no longer depends on being noticed, your actions align more closely with truth. You stop chasing reactions and start honoring purpose. You stop adjusting yourself to fit expectations and start aligning yourself with what pleases Allah. So if you find yourself in a season where your efforts feel unseen, where encouragement has faded, and where validation feels distant, understand that Allah is teaching you something valuable. He is strengthening your heart, purifying your intentions, and stabilizing your faith. This lesson may feel uncomfortable, but it leads to freedom, the freedom of relying on Allah alone. Healing is often imagined as a sudden moment of relief, a clear feeling of happiness, or an obvious emotional shift where pain disappears completely. Many people wait for that moment and assume that if it has not arrived, healing has not begun. But Allah does not always heal in loud or dramatic ways. In fact, some of the deepest healing happens quietly, slowly, and without announcement. Sometimes healing looks like acceptance rather than joy. You may still remember what hurt you, but it no longer controls your reactions. The pain may still exist, but it no longer defines you. You are able to move forward without constantly reopening the wound. This is healing. It may not feel exciting, but it is powerful. Allah heals hearts in stages because the heart needs time to understand, not just to feel better. Sudden relief can remove pain, but gradual healing removes bitterness, resentment, and confusion. Allah allows the heart to process experiences slowly so that wisdom can grow alongside recovery. When pain is rushed away, lessons are often lost. When pain softens over time, understanding takes root. Silent healing often begins with emotional control. You may notice that situations which once triggered anger, sadness, or fear no longer affect you as strongly. You respond with calm where you once reacted with intensity. This change may be subtle, but it is significant. It shows that Allah is strengthening your inner stability even if your circumstances remain the same. Another sign of quiet healing is the ability to continue without resentment. Resentment is heavy. It drains energy, clouds judgment, and burdens the heart. When Allah begins to heal, resentment slowly loosens its grip. You may not forget what happened, but you stop carrying it everywhere. You are no longer living in constant emotional tension. This release is a mercy from Allah. Healing also appears in the way you speak. The need to constantly explain your pain fades. The urge to justify your feelings decreases. You become more at peace with what happened, even if you do not fully understand it. Silence replaces repetition and calm replaces urgency. This is not emotional numbness, it is emotional maturity. Allah heals gradually because hearts are delicate. Forcing healing can cause more damage than benefit. Some wounds need time to breathe, to be acknowledged, and to be understood. Allah knows exactly how much time each heart needs. He does not rush the process because rushed healing often leaves hidden fractures behind. Quiet healing strengthens patience. As days pass and you continue without dramatic change, patience becomes a daily act of trust. You learn to live with unanswered questions while maintaining faith. This patience reshapes the heart, making it more resilient and less reactive. Over time, this resilience becomes strength. Silent healing also teaches humility. When healing is slow, the believer is reminded of their dependence on Allah. You learn to ask Him repeatedly for peace, clarity, and strength. This repeated turning toward Allah deepens the relationship with Him. Healing becomes not just recovery from pain, but growth in faith. There are moments when quiet healing feels frustrating. You may wonder why you still feel affected, why complete relief has not arrived, or why progress feels slow. But Allah does not measure healing by speed. He measures it by depth. What heals deeply lasts longer. What heals quietly is less likely to reopen. Allah also uses time to separate emotion from truth. When pain is fresh, emotions can distort perception. With time, clarity increases. You begin to see situations more accurately. You recognize what was beyond your control, what needed to end, and what lessons were meant to remain. This clarity is part of healing. Silent healing prepares the heart for future challenges. A heart that has healed gradually understands itself better. It knows its limits, its triggers, and its needs. This self-awareness allows the believer to face future difficulties with greater wisdom and balance. Allah heals not only to restore, but to prepare. Quiet healing is also protective. When healing is hidden, it is less vulnerable to external interference. Opinions, expectations, and pressure do not disrupt it. The heart recovers at its own pace under Allah's care. This protection ensures that healing is not undone by comparison or impatience. Sometimes healing is simply the ability to continue living with faith intact. You may not feel fully restored, but you are no longer falling apart. You still pray, you still trust Allah, you still believe that goodness exists ahead. This endurance is a sign that healing is already underway. Allah softens pain before removing it completely. He reduces its sharpness, then its weight, then its influence. This gradual easing allows the heart to adjust without shock. Over time, what once felt unbearable becomes manageable, then distant, then instructive rather than painful. Silent healing also brings gratitude. As peace slowly returns, even in small amounts, appreciation grows. You begin to value calm moments, emotional balance, and inner clarity. These blessings may seem simple, but they are precious. Allah teaches the heart to recognize peace once it has known pain. So if you feel that healing is slow, do not assume it is absent. If relief has not arrived loudly, look for the quiet changes. Look for increased patience, calmer reactions, and softened emotions. These are signs that Allah is working gently within you. Healing does not need to be dramatic to be real. It does not need to erase the past to restore the heart. Allah heals in a way that strengthens, teaches, and protects. This kind of healing may take time, but it is deep, lasting, and filled with wisdom. And when it is complete, you will realize that Allah did not just heal your pain, He elevated your heart. Many people turn to Allah asking for relief. They ask for ease, for change, for doors to open, and for hardship to end. These du'as are sincere, and Allah hears every one of them. But Allah, in His wisdom, often responds in a way that the heart does not immediately understand. Instead of changing the situation right away, He begins by working on the heart that is living inside that situation. Allah knows that a change in circumstances is not always a blessing if the heart is not ready to carry it. Relief without inner stability can become a test of arrogance. Ease without gratitude can lead to forgetfulness. Success without humility can damage faith. For this reason, Allah prepares the inside before altering the outside. He strengthens the heart so that when change arrives, it becomes a source of goodness rather than harm. When hardship remains longer than expected, many people feel confused. They wonder why their prayers seem unanswered, but Allah is answering in a deeper way. He is training patience, shaping resilience, and teaching reliance. He is making the heart strong enough to hold what is coming without losing balance. This training is not visible, but it is essential. A heart that has not been trained may misuse ease. When relief comes suddenly, a weak heart may forget Allah, abandon gratitude, or return to old habits. But a heart that has endured, reflected, and relied on Allah during difficulty understands the value of what it receives. It does not take blessings lightly. It treats ease as a trust rather than an entitlement. Allah trains the heart through delay. Delay teaches patience. Patience teaches self-control. Self-control builds discipline. Discipline strengthens faith. Each layer prepares the believer for a future where responsibility will increase. Allah does not rush this process because rushed growth is fragile. What is built slowly becomes firm. Inner training also teaches humility. When a person struggles despite effort, they realize their dependence on Allah. They learn that strength does not come from their own ability alone. This awareness protects them when circumstances improve. They remember where help truly came from. Gratitude becomes natural, not forced. Allah also uses hardship to cleanse intention. When ease is absent, motives are tested. Are you still faithful when comfort is missing? Are you still obedient when reward is delayed? This testing purifies sincerity. When the heart proves its loyalty, Allah entrusts it with more. Training the heart before changing circumstances prevents corruption of character. Many people change outwardly when their situation improves. Their manners shift. Their patience shortens and their humility weakens. But those whose hearts were trained privately remain steady. Their behavior does not depend on comfort. Their values do not change with status. Allah also strengthens emotional endurance before granting relief. If circumstances improved without emotional readiness, the believer might still feel empty, anxious, or fearful. Inner strength ensures that when life becomes easier, peace accompanies it. The goal is not only to change what surrounds you, but to stabilize what is within you. Sometimes Allah delays relief because He is protecting you from yourself. What you are asking for may arrive with responsibility you are not yet prepared to handle. Allah waits until wisdom grows, patience settles, and faith deepens. Then, when change occurs, it benefits you fully. Private strength ensures that blessings are carried with responsibility. When Allah gives after training the heart, the believer uses ease to serve, not to boast. They give thanks rather than take credit. They remain grounded rather than distracted. This balance is a sign of divine preparation. Allah's method is consistent. He does not elevate without preparing. He does not grant without training. And He does not open doors until the heart knows how to walk through them properly. This preparation may feel slow, but it is intentional. You will realize that the delay protected you. You will see that the patience you developed was necessary. The strength you gained was essential. And the humility you learned was a gift. So if your circumstances have not changed yet, do not assume nothing is happening. Allah may already be changing the most important thing first, your heart. And when that work is complete, what comes next will not shake you, spoil you, or distance you from Him. It will elevate you with gratitude, balance, and faith. Allah does not deny relief. He perfects the timing. And when relief comes after inner strength, it becomes a blessing that lasts. One of the quiet pains many believers carry is the feeling of being unseen. They continue to try, to improve, to remain patient, yet it feels as though their efforts disappear into silence. No recognition, no visible change, no clear sign that anything is improving. Over time, this can lead the heart to question its worth. But Allah teaches us a powerful truth. Being unseen by people does not mean being unnoticed by Him. Allah's attention is not measured by public outcomes, numbers, or visible success. People often judge value by what they can observe. They notice results, achievements, and external changes. Allah, however, looks far deeper. He looks at intention before action, effort before outcome, and sincerity before recognition. What may appear small or invisible to others carries immense weight with Allah. Every sincere intention is known to Him. Even before an action is completed, Allah is aware of the struggle behind it. The internal effort to choose patience over anger, honesty over convenience, and faith over despair is not hidden. When a believer restrains themselves in solitude, Allah sees. When they resist giving up during quiet disappointment, Allah sees. When they continue obeying Him despite feeling exhausted, Allah sees. There are many forms of effort that never appear publicly. Choosing not to react, holding back words, walking away from temptation, and continuing in prayer during emotional heaviness are all forms of worship. These actions often leave no visible trace in the world, but they leave a deep imprint on the soul. Allah values these moments because they reflect sincerity, not performance. Even when life appears unchanged on the surface, something is always happening beneath it. Allah uses these quiet seasons to shape endurance. Endurance is not built through ease. It is built through persistence when progress feels slow. Through this endurance, the believer learns to continue without constant reassurance. This quality strengthens faith and stabilizes the heart. Allah also develops wisdom during unseen phases. When growth is quiet, reflection increases. The believer learns from experience, observes patterns, and gains insight into their own reactions and beliefs. This wisdom is subtle but powerful. It allows the believer to approach future situations with greater balance and understanding. Trust is another gift developed during these periods. When effort does not immediately lead to visible results, the believer is invited to trust Allah's timing. This trust is not blind, it is built through consistency day after day. The believer chooses faith despite uncertainty. This choice deepens reliance on Allah in a way that visible success never could. Nothing sincere is ignored. Allah records every act of restraint, every internal struggle, and every moment of obedience that happens quietly. Even when the world does not respond, Allah's response is guaranteed. Sometimes it comes in the form of peace, sometimes clarity, sometimes protection from harm, and sometimes reward delayed for the hereafter. Many people underestimate the value of what they endure silently. They compare their quiet efforts to others' visible progress and feel left behind. But Allah does not compare His servants the way people do. He knows individual capacities, personal struggles, and hidden burdens. What seems slow for one heart may be heavy for another. Allah judges with complete fairness. Being unseen can also be a mercy. When Allah hides a believer's efforts, He protects them from pride, envy, and distraction. The heart remains focused on obedience rather than reputation. This protection allows sincerity to grow without interference. There will be moments when the believer wishes for acknowledgement, for someone to notice how much effort it takes to keep going. In those moments, remember that Allah's knowledge is enough. His awareness is complete. His reward is certain. Unseen effort builds internal strength. It teaches the believer to stand without applause and continue without affirmation. This strength is essential for long-term faith. It prevents burnout caused by dependence on external validation and replaces it with inner conviction. When Allah eventually reveals what was built in private, it stands firmly. It does not collapse under pressure because it was not built for attention. And even if Allah never reveals it publicly, its value remains unchanged. The purpose was never recognition, it was transformation. So if you feel unseen today, do not assume you are unvalued. Allah is aware of your intentions, your effort, and your restraint. He is shaping endurance, wisdom, and trust within you. Nothing sincere is lost, and nothing done for Allah goes unnoticed. What you are becoming matters more than what people see. One of the greatest tests of faith is not hardship itself, but waiting to be understood, waiting to see results, waiting for effort to matter in visible ways. The heart often asks, when will this be seen? When will this change? When will relief arrive? Allah answers these questions not with haste, but with wisdom. He reveals growth when it serves a purpose, not when impatience demands it. Allah's timing is not delayed, it is deliberate. What feels late to us is often right on time in His plan. We see only the present moment, but Allah sees the future, the impact, and the responsibility that comes with exposure. He knows when revealing growth would benefit the believer and when it would harm them. For this reason, some people are kept hidden longer than they expect. Being hidden is not always about being unready. Sometimes it is about being protected. Allah shields some believers from attention because attention could distract them, inflate the ego, or place pressure on the heart before it is fully stable. Not every soul is meant to grow under observation. Some hearts flourish only when left undisturbed. Others are kept hidden to be refined. Refinement takes time. It involves removing weaknesses, strengthening intention, and stabilizing character. If growth were revealed too early, the believer might rely on recognition rather than sincerity. Allah refines quietly so that when the reveal happens, the heart remains grounded. Allah does not reveal growth to impress people. He reveals it to fulfill purpose. When exposure serves no benefit, Allah withholds it. When influence would cause harm, Allah delays it. When responsibility would overwhelm, Allah prepares the heart first. This restraint is mercy, even if it feels frustrating. What is built quietly develops depth. Quiet growth allows mistakes to be corrected without public embarrassment. It allows learning without pressure. It allows strength to mature naturally. When growth happens without noise, it becomes stable. It does not collapse under criticism or inflate under praise because it was not shaped by either. Impatience often comes from comparison. We see others progressing visibly and wonder why our own efforts remain hidden. But Allah does not run a race between His servants. Each soul has its own pace, its own capacity, and its own path. Comparing timelines only creates unnecessary pain. Trusting Allah's timing requires surrender. It requires accepting that visibility is not a measure of value. It requires believing that what Allah withholds now may protect you from harm you cannot yet see. This trust grows stronger each time you continue without clarity and still choose faith. When Allah decides the time is right, the reveal is effortless. What was built in silence stands firmly. There is no rush, no scrambling, no fear of collapse. The believer steps into visibility with humility and balance because they were trained away from attention. Some things are meant to last, not trend. What lasts is usually built slowly, quietly, and patiently. Noise attracts attention, but it rarely sustains growth. Depth, on the other hand, carries longevity. Allah prioritizes what endures over what impresses. Trusting the timing of reveal also teaches contentment. Contentment does not mean lack of ambition. It means peace with Allah's process. It allows the believer to focus on effort rather than outcome, obedience rather than recognition, and sincerity rather than exposure. There will be moments when the heart grows tired of waiting. In those moments, remember that Allah has not forgotten you. He is not delaying out of neglect, but out of care. What He reveals too early may not remain. What He reveals at the right time is established. If Allah is keeping you hidden, ask not why, but for what. Perhaps He is protecting your heart. Perhaps He is strengthening your foundation. Perhaps He is preparing you for a role that requires stability, patience, and humility. What grows without noise often lasts the longest because it is not dependent on attention. It survives seasons of silence and moments of challenge. It stands firm because it was rooted deeply before it was ever seen. Trust Allah's timing, trust His wisdom. When the moment comes, you will understand why waiting was necessary, and when what was built quietly is finally revealed, it will not need explanation. Its strength will speak for itself. Becoming strong in private is not about disappearing from the world, but about standing firmly within yourself. It is about choosing faith when ease is delayed, choosing sincerity when recognition is absent, and choosing trust when outcomes are unclear. What Allah builds quietly within a heart is never fragile, because it is shaped by patience, guided by wisdom, and protected by divine care. If your journey feels unseen, let that be a source of comfort rather than doubt. Allah is aware of every step you have taken, every struggle you have endured, and every moment you chose Him over despair. When the time is right, what He has prepared will emerge with purpose and balance. Until then, continue with trust, knowing that strength formed in silence is often the strength that lasts a lifetime.